Okay. Hi, everyone. We are live. Welcome to Dataverse. This is our monthly live stream where we share new data on current trends and bring together experts to have a conversation and give advice related to that data. So in today's conversation, we're going to touch on the results of our latest CNBC Workforce Happiness Survey. We have two amazing HR experts here to comment on the data. The data today will focus on this big shift we've all made to working from home. So question for all of you, if you're logging in, where are you joining us from today? We are all at our home offices. I'll let Becky and Lynne introduce themselves because we're going to be hearing a lot from each of them today. Becky, do we want to start with you?
Sure. Laura, thank you. Hi, I'm Rebecca Cantieri. I'm the Chief People and Places Officer at SurveyMonkey.
Lynne?
Hi, how are oh, sure. Hi, Laura, how are you? Becky, good to see you. I am Lynne Oldham. I'm the Chief People Officer at Zoom Video Communications. I've been at Zoom since January of last year and have never experienced a more exciting time than what we're going through right now.
Thank you both so much for joining us. So both of you serve on CNBC's Workforce Executive Council. So we're really looking forward to hearing your advice today. We're going to kind of structure this conversation around several big data points related to the shift to working from home. So we conduct a regular survey with SurveyMonkey and CNBC on workforce happiness. We just conducted the latest round of that survey in May of 2020, a month or two after we saw all these big changes occur in the workplace. So kind of despite all of the issues with unstable internet, being away from your colleagues, having your kids as your new coworkers and dogs and cats and all of that fun stuff, what we actually saw in the data was we track workforce happiness over time. And it turns out that workforce happiness increased from November of last year to May of this year. So that's kind of our first big data point that I'd like to get both of you to reflect on. So actual survey results show that we calculate a workforce happiness score. That number increased from 71 out of 100 in November to 73 out of 100 in May. And not only that, but workers who have been working from home have a higher score of 75 compared with workers who haven't been working from home. So for both of you, can you talk a little bit about, if you put yourself back in your own shoes, think back to March of this year, how did you, as you were starting to make these decisions about moving everyone to work from home, what were some of the choices you were making? How did you think about the effect that working from home would have on each of your respective workforces? Maybe Becky, can we start with you?
Sure. So like many others, we were watching what was going on, heeding the advice of the CDC and the World Health Organization, monitoring what our tech peers were doing as well, and very quickly made a decision to pivot to work from home. And as a note, Lynne, interestingly and thankfully, 3 weeks prior, we had implemented Zoom. 3 weeks prior to that decision to work from home, and we are so happy that we did that to enable us to be productive and work effectively from home. But so we made that initial decision. It is time for the safety and comfort of our employees to transition to work from home. And very quickly thereafter, we launched our first Corona leadership survey. And SurveyMonkey has a leadership survey template that others are able to use. And we launched our first survey and gathered some insights really quickly that we were able to action on. And those insights really centered around the ability of our team to be productive at home and have kind of the proper setup to work from home. And then also around the desired frequency and depth of communication that the team was looking for as we navigated this period of uncertainty. So it quickly helped us transition into a few programs and practices that were important to the truth. The first of which was offering a stipend to help our employees set themselves up to be productive working from home. It gave us some great insight into the level of stress, anxiety, and social isolation that the team was feeling initially as we went out, which was also important to our ongoing programming. And then lastly, it helped us set up a cadence of communication with our weekly troop town halls, email communication, production of an FAQ that helped answer all of the questions that were really, really important to them as our kind of primary starting point when we faced the situation in March.
Great. Lynn, how about you?
Well, for Zoom, I think first let me set the stage, because I think what a lot of people would not know about Zoom is that we were not a fully remote workforce. In fact, we were about 20% of the team remote prior to COVID being in our lives. And then we went fully remote on March 4th, about 2 weeks before the shelter-in-place orders came down. And I think the most important thing to really think about is that, as I think about it, Zoom employees are human first. So whatever's happening out in the world, they are experiencing the same fear, sickness, confusion, panic, and so are we, right? So are the Zoom employees. But what's kept our employees really excited and happy and up this period, extraordinary hours and work and maybe lack of boundaries, is that they're serving, they're feeling privileged, that they're connecting students, weddings, you name it. We moved very quickly from this B2B space to B2C, and we saw a lot of people using our platform. So that really was the gas in the tank of our employees. And I think what I see now is that people used to live life through the cracks of work, and now they're working through the cracks of life. And that's really enabled that happiness, I think, Laura. If you think about it, one of my colleagues told me that he's been counting the number of meals that he's able to have with his lovely wife through this period of time. And he said, he's at a number, north of 100 at this point. And he's saying, I have that many meals with my wife in one whole year when before all of this. So I think that's what we're seeing. And that's why the happiness factor is there.
Yeah, I think one kind of related point or maybe a caveat for all of this data that I did just want to mention is that the coronavirus outbreak, once it started, caused so many changes in the nature of work, but it also caused a significant and steep increase in the unemployment rate. So for a lot of us, if we're working at companies like SurveyMonkey and Zoom, there's been an increased demand for the products that we're providing, but for workers in the restaurant industry or the travel industry or hospitality, a lot of those people were kind of left without any sort of grounding at work. So one of the data points actually that we saw in our May survey was that when asked directly about the effect the pandemic has had on the way they think about their job, 38% of workers say they're happier to have their job now than they were before the outbreak. Just 11% say that now more than before they wish they had a different job, and about half say they feel the same about their job now as they did before the coronavirus outbreak. Do either of you, have you seen kind of, what has morale been like at both SurveyMonkey and Zoom? Have you seen any sort of change in people's perceptions or their thinking about how they're approaching their work?
Yeah, Laura, I think that's a really important point. We exist in a technology industry and work at organizations whose products have been uniquely useful to our customers and potentially even a broader base of customers during this time. And that is not a position that all companies are in. So while there have been challenges in adapting to working from home, at least for the SurveyMonkey population, I do think that perspective of being in a position of privilege, being part of a business and an organization that is resilient, adds to their happiness at work and their commitment to serving their customers. Lynn, to your point, in terms of what the Zoom team is feeling. So, I think there's employees at SurveyMonkey are balanced in their feelings of happiness while balancing stress and all of the other critical parts of life at home that may be challenging. Whether you're in an apartment with 6 other individuals, everyone trying to find a work space to be in, or you have caregiving responsibilities, whether that's children, elders, or you're separated from family members. There are multiple complexities that make this challenging for people on really, really different levels. But I think they're balancing that again with the feelings of being able to be impactful and having gratitude for being in the position that they're in.
Yeah, I would echo that as well. It's all the same sentiments. I think that we've really stepped up, as you were talking about, Laura. We've stepped up things around stipends to ensure that people have what they need, if that's a meditation class or whatever they need to sort of alleviate the stress. Because, like I said, humans first. So that means that a spouse might have lost a role. A child, might not be able to go to school like they were. I mean, they're not in a vacuum. They're certainly working, long hours to do what we've got to do. But at the same time, I think you're right. Being in the unique position to be able to help is really is the reward that's kind of keeping them on balance.
I agree. I agree with all of that feedback. I want to, so just as a reminder, if anyone is joining the live stream now, we're here, this is our Dataverse live stream. We have Rebecca Cantieri, the Chief People Officer from SurveyMonkey, and Lynne Oldham, the Chief People Officer from Zoom. I want to transition a bit. We actually got a comment or a question in on our live stream. And so if you're watching, feel free to ask us questions. This comment is from Chris, who says, I like working in the office. Working remote is great for now, but long-term after COVID-19, I think it's better to collaborate in person. So for the next part of the conversation, I want to kind of reorient around looking ahead instead of looking back to those initial decisions we were all making in March. But looking ahead, how do we start to think about reimagining what the workforce will look like? In our survey data, we found that about 1 in 5 workers, 19%, say they will want to work from home all of the time, even after coronavirus is no longer a threat. I'm looking forward to that day. Another 30% say they'll want to work from home more often than they had previously. So I think the tricky thing with that estimate is that 1 in 5 is a large enough minority where it will cause some changes probably at the business level, but it's not, it's in the gray area. It's not everyone wants to work remotely or no one wants to work remotely, but that involves a lot of decisions for people like the two of you. So how are you starting to think about the future of work and what things will look like in the coming months and years? Lynne, maybe we can start with you. Since
Sure.
So the big technology that's allowing all of these changes.
We've done our own analysis, and of course, during this pandemic, I think minds are changing all the time. So we can't just take a moment in time and say that's what it's going to be. So I'd say from our last survey, which is about 2 weeks ago at this point, a little more than a third of our employees want to work from home only. And then about half of our employees are actually saying they want flexibility. Flexibility is all over the board. Some want 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It's I think we're looking at coming back in terms of the world, not just Zoom, but in thinking about how to offer maximum flexibility. And I think another study I'll point to is this one I just saw with Just Capital. They said that 89% of employees are expecting their companies to do something different. So they don't want to see the same old post-pandemic. So we really owe it to our employees to be thinking about how to do that, what it looks like, what's the business case for change, how do we ensure there are no biases in how we think about it. How do we make a flexible work world not be the haves and have-nots, right? So it's something I think we owe to our employees, and we're in the thinking stages right now. We haven't decided because I think there's a little bit more of this to go in terms of the pandemic, but it is something that I think we're out with everybody else at the same time.
Yeah. Becky, what are you seeing from SurveyMonkey's side?
Yeah, so similarly, it starts with data. We ran another survey using a SurveyMonkey template about returning to work. And from that, we got some really great insights. The most important of which was a number of factors that were important to employees in the consideration of returning to work were entirely out of our control. Those were things like a vaccine, the availability of antibody testing, and their caregiving and or school resources coming back online. Now, there were some things within our control, like how we space out or socially distance in the office, putting in place protocols. But in the end, given the concerns of our employees and putting the health and safety of them as our top priority, we made the decision to extend our work from home period, at the very least through September, and then giving everyone the option to work from home through the end of the year. And with that, engage in work that we're referring to as reimagining the workplace. And like you, Lynn, for us, that means heeding all of the research and data and insights about the future of work that existed even before the COVID situation. Also taking into consideration all the real learnings that we've had during COVID about our ability to be productive, about the changing expectations or values of employees as it relates to flexibility and those kinds of things. So heeding all of those insights together, and first reimagining how we work and how we will engage and interact differently in the future, while also being mindful of those often sometimes unintended consequences that happen when you move too quickly. So we're going to work through it really systematically. And then once we have a good sense of work, then we'll be able to say, what does that mean for our facilities? And how might we change or leverage our facilities going differently going forward? So we're on, like you, this journey of, listening, learning, understanding, while we then formulate our future plans that, like most, will be different than how we existed before. I think the idea of all of my productive work has to happen between the hours of, X and Y at my desk, this singular desk that I own. Like you, we had even less than 20% of our employee population was working from home regularly. So, our learnings have been abundant and our opportunity for change really significant, but we're really excited about it.
I think what's interesting, Becky, is that a lot of folks are looking at this as an opportunity maybe to relocate. So there is that healthy tension between us needing to listen, learn, watch, and figure this out without moving too fast. But then there are folks who are like moving from Silicon Valley to Texas, and they want to know, can I stay? Is that okay? That's sort of what the tension is right now for us. And I think we definitely need to take the time, but at the same time, I've got that kind of nagging at me around this idea that people want a little bit more certainty.
Yeah, it is a very, very fine balance. And I think uncertainty is one of the biggest challenges we will face through the end of the year, both individually and as organizations. As a sidebar, we both have children, and we've been talking about the uncertainty of school and the implications of that on our lives. Employees are doing the similar thing about, everything ranging from geography to what their work will look like, to the resources that they need to be successful and productive. So there's absolutely a lot to work through. And unfortunately, we don't have a playbook or a Harvard Business Review article or case study to just pick up and follow. We're learning and iterating along the way, and taking the great insights from peers and colleagues in a number of different industries to help us shape our path.
Definitely.
Well, one last data point that I wanted to get in that kind of reflects everything we've been talking about in our May survey, we found that more than 4 in 5 workers, that was 83%, say they're confident their organization's leadership is making the right business decisions to manage through the current environment. So again, it was 2 months after kind of the biggest changes had just started, and we're now almost 2 months away from that time. But I think that reflects really well on people like the two of you who've been making all of these tough decisions in recent weeks. Do either of you have any advice for anyone who may be watching, who, in terms of what are some of the things that you feel the most confident that you've done that have led you to make these decisions in managing your organizations?
I just think listening and to our employees is the most critical piece right now. I don't think that, it's all of that's going on in the world is really important as well, but really honing in on our employee population and listening and understanding what they're going through is critical for us. And I think that's been the most important part of what we've been doing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Lynn. That's been kind of the heart and soul of our response at SurveyMonkey. Like you, listening is really the basis for understanding, empathizing, and then gives you the insights and tools that you need to make good decisions going forward. And Laura, to your data point, yes, it always feels great when your team, your employee base shares their confidence in the decision making that you demonstrated so far. It kind of fuels you as a leader to continue to listen, to continue to iterate, because this is a very iterative situation, and to face the uncertainties ahead. But listening is really at its core. And, at SurveyMonkey, well, I wish I could have 1,400 conversations. That's not feasible. But the SurveyMonkey platform, has been our tool that helps us do that at scale and have conversations with people that matter most to me and to our executive team, which is our employee population. We can't serve our customers if we're not serving our employees.
Totally agree. I think we are totally aligned on that.
Yeah. We even matched today, which is great.
I know.
Well, I think that's just about it for today. We will add in all of the resources that we've discussed in this conversation in the links on LinkedIn. So we have the survey results. We have on SurveyMonkey's end, we have several templates, some of which Becky mentioned. We also have our workforce happiness template available. So if any organizations want to use that for their own workers, we can calculate the same score that we did. We can also add the Just Capital survey that Lynn mentioned, and we can find resources from Zoom as well. But please subscribe to the channel and join us again for our next conversation. I hope that everyone's really gotten something out of this data sharing today. So, and thank you, Becky and Lynn, for providing your expertise. It's always great to have true experts available to talk about the data.
Thank you. This has been fun.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks, Lynn. We all appreciate Zoom in these days.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to have you as a customer. All right. Take care, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.